Welcome to Raptors Today. This is part two. In case you missed part one with Sherman Hamilton, myself, you can go back and look at it on the Raptors YouTube channel. Media Day, part two. So much to look at, so much to cover, so much to hear. You already heard from Masai Ujiri, head coach Darko Rajakovic, Scotty Barnes, and Pascal Siakam in our last episode. Like I said, if you didn't see it, go back and look at it. And let's get going with a guy that came back to the Raptors mid-season last year from the San Antonio Spurs in the trade. This is Jakob Poeltl.
How different, and I'm aware it's media day and there have only been informal stuff so far, but how different does what you're trying to do seem from, offensively I'm speaking, seem from how you ended the year last year?
I think there's a pretty big difference in like the core principles. Obviously, there are some things that we're going to default to that are going to stay the same, but that high post offense, like trying to run the ball, like that motion offense through the five, is going to take some time getting used to. I think we had elements of that in the past, but it's going to be a bigger focus now. But I'm curious as well. I'm curious to see what it will look like in the first real games, like maybe a preseason game or even then like the first regular season games.
What did you work on in this offseason to be the best center you could be for the Toronto Raptors?
I don't think it changed my off-season work too much. Obviously, there's some elements that changed just from the role I was expecting to maybe have on this team, but like it's one of those things where like I don't know ahead of time what this team's going to look like. We have some ideas, we have some plans. Like I talked to Coach Darko during summer league. Like we had some work together in August in LA as well. So you get an idea, but really the identity of the team is only going to form when we actually get to start playing. So yeah, I've worked on mostly the same things I've been working on. Maybe a little bit more, like I said, that high post action, trying to create some things for myself, create an offensive package out of those situations for myself as well, being aggressive out of it, a little bit more post work maybe, different things like that.
Fred didn't have a great shooting season last year, but I think he was still perceived as a pretty good pull-up shooter, threat at least. How does it change not having him around, and some of the guys you might be running pick and roll with aren't necessarily seen as high-end three-point shooters, pull-up shooters? How does that change your chemistry in the pick and roll, and how does that change the way you see yourself being used offensively?
Pick and roll always comes down to like who I'm setting the pick for. It's always going to look a little bit different. So if I think it's a guy that's going to be shooting less threes behind the screen, like let's pull up shots, like kind of like you said, it might be a matter of setting that screen a little bit lower, like rolling faster, trying to create downhill 2-on-1 scenarios. But those are the small details I was talking about earlier that it's going to take a little bit of time to figure out. I'm going to have to talk to those guys that I'm going to be playing pick and roll with. Might be like Dennis, Malachi, Scotty. It's about communication and trying to figure out how both parties can like help each other succeed the best way. And it's the same thing I did with Fred when I got traded here. Like we kind of talked about the situations, how he likes to pick set, what space he likes to get into, and then I told him like the situation that I felt comfortable with, like rolling the ball, like where I felt like I could make the most out of getting the basketball and like make the best basketball play. I still think our biggest strengths are in just turning teams over, like running out in transition, like being physical. Like we have a lot of those guys that are going to be hard to stop in the open court. Especially now, like we've added a little bit more shooting with Grady as well. The spacing, hopefully, in the transition situations, like it's kind of those situations I was talking about earlier when we're flowing, when we're gelling, we're playing fast. I think that's going to be really good for us. I think we're going to be a fairly paint-heavy team as well. Again, like we got some pretty physical guys out there that can do some damage there. So hopefully we can keep that up and keep putting pressure on the rim against other defenses.
Year. Do you feel more settled? And how much do you think having that full summer and now having a full training camp as well will help you this season?
I feel more settled for sure. I'm still trying to work out some small details, but we're getting there. What was the second part?
How much do you feel like having the full summer and the full training camp will or can help you this season?
I mean, especially the full training camp, the whole preseason process. I think it's gonna help me personally a lot. Obviously, like I figured out some things on the fly, and it just took a little bit more time. But like that time period of trying to figure it out is now going to be in more of a practice setting, which is going to help. You're not getting thrown into deep end, kind of like it was last season. So, we have more time to talk about things, figure it out, like kind of, I guess, like, yeah, just work on developing a working team chemistry. And it's not going to be easy. Like other guys it's almost like a little step back because we have a new coach, a new system. So like even guys that have been here for a long time, like it's going to be an adjustment period for them as well. So and then an adjustment period for us as a team. So I don't expect it to work perfectly right from the start, but I think it's a process that is good for us to go through, and then hopefully we'll keep improving throughout the season.
Sherm, some interesting thoughts by a guy who was with the team, left, and has come back after being at the Popovich basketball camp. And with Darko talking about positions 1 to 4 being interchangeable, that means that Jakob Poeltl is going to have a multitude of pick and roll partners once you get to two-man games. He talked about it, but again, I'll go back to what we mentioned before. That takes a certain amount of time and chemistry and patience to develop over the course of the year.
Well, it does, and I think when you talk about Jakob, one thing we've realized is that he doesn't play outside of himself. He keeps it really simple, and he's effective at what he does. And sometimes opportunities and time can expose a player for what they're not good at. I think for Jakob, more time, more opportunities this season is going to create a great situation for him to get more comfortable, to understand who he's working with, what the coach wants from him, and then to subtly expand his game in the process as well. So he's a cerebral player, and anytime the screener in a screening role understands the ball handler, you have so many more options. And I think this time with the training camp, with preseason, it's going to allow him to really settle in and understand the lay of the land more so than last season.
Well, it was interesting, Sherm, because you heard him say, looking for opportunities to play through the high post and at the high post. So you can see that his mind is working already. We talked about it. He was an all-defensive performer. Let's hear from OG Anunoby.
Masai Ujiri's been talking a lot at the end of last season and just speaking to him about, selfishness on last year's team. Does it feel like with the changes over the summer and just a new year in general that's addressed? What's the mood like for the team in terms of playing together?
I think it's a good mood. Like the team wants to play together. We want to improve on last year. We don't want it to go like it went last year. So I think collectively we all want to improve and play the right way. And hopefully it translates to winning games.
How would you say your conversations with Darko have gone, and what struck you about his personality?
I've definitely talked to Darko a lot as well. Darko's just a great guy, fun to talk to, loves talking basketball, loves talking strategy. So we just talked a lot about offense, defense, just different things we want to do this season, It went well.
You had an amazing defensive season last year, obviously made all defense for the first time. But as a team, you guys finished kind of closer to the middle of the pack. So I'm wondering from your perspective, what do you feel like you guys need to do collectively to improve upon that and get up into, top 5 territory?
Really just, execution in games, end the games, and then also just carrying out the game plan, A lot of times we're in games and then, maybe third quarter, team will go on a run or something, or the game will be close and then some run will happen and then, we'll end up losing the game. So just finishing games through, not focusing or not relaxing, letting up, and just keeping the intensity for 48 minutes.
And do you have a sense of schematically how things might be different under Darko than they were under Nick at that end of the floor?
Do I know everything exactly? Right now, no, not yet. But I'm sure there'll be some things that are the same and some things that are different.
Back to Fred for a second. With him leaving, there's obviously a leadership void, or a bit of one. How does that change your role? And then beyond that, is there a natural next in the pecking order?
Yeah, Fred leaving, he was a great leader for us. He led vocally and by example. So with him gone, I've been here for a while, so I've always tried to lead by example, but to start trying to use my voice more often. And is there a next what?
Is there a natural next guy to Fred, like the guy who kind of fills that void by himself, or does it have to be a collective?
I think collectively, because I think you can't replace one person, just like can't replace Kyle, can't replace Serge, can't replace, no one can be replaced. So I think collectively we all step up, and then it just happens naturally.
You've been a tremendous shooter since you came into the league, but you've also been in set actions and for the health of the offense, positioned as a shooter to open up lanes for other players. How does that impact how you want to grow as an on-ball creator, and how do you find the right line with the coach, with the front office, and with yourself, trying to make sure that you get touches to grow, and also that you provide help for other guys to succeed?
Really just doing whatever the team needs. And it depends on a game-to-game basis. Like some games, depending on how the other team's playing, I might be on the ball more. Other games might be spotting up more, spacing out more. It just depends on first the lineups who are out there and then game to game. So just working on my game regardless, and then doing whatever the team needs. So if I have to put up a bunch of threes or just space, I'll do that. Just do whatever the team needs, main thing.
All right, Sherm, you heard some things from OG. Interesting things. The fact that with Fred VanVleet gone, he wants to become more of a leader. We know OG is a very kind of introspective, quiet guy.
Cerebral.
Very cerebral. And you think about it, he's going to have to step outside of himself. And sometimes that's how you grow, stepping outside of your comfort zone. So this leadership, and as he said, giving the team whatever they need, that's going to be big for him.
Yeah, and I think players need challenges. I mean, he achieved a great accomplishment being an all-defensive player last year, and for OG Anunoby, he speaks about it. His way of leadership is by example. He goes out there, he plays hard, he locks up any positional player that he's playing against, and that's great. But now more is being asked of him. And it's, as you said, it's going to stretch him a bit. It's going to take him outside of his comfort zone. But if he can accomplish that, he's going to elevate this team, not only himself. So I think it's a great time for OG to be put in this position. I think he's ready for it, and I think he can fill that void, because nobody's really going to take everything that Fred left and be able to fill it themselves. But he can take a piece of that, and I think it'll be a big step for OG.
Well, another guy who's looking to take a piece of that, expand his game, as Sherm talked about, improve, work outside his comfort zone and get better, is Gary Trent Jr.
You had some exposure to Darko so far. How do you think his style is going to help you, complement you, and vice versa? And two, you re-up for your contract or opted in, and is there any discussions or thoughts about an extension?
To start off, being with Coach Darko so far in the weeks we've been together, it's been, great. He's super receptive. His communication has been great, whether it's talking about basketball, whether it's talking about his kids, his coaching journey, how he got here, his story, as long as the other coaches as well too, but it's been great. I told him as well too, this is the first time in my career, I've been in NBA 6 years, and I've had more conversations with him about anything than any coach I've ever had or played for. So that's been refreshing. It's been great. We've been here, we've been getting it in, and working hard and trying to put the steps and put everything together to gel this thing together. A lot of new faces, new coaching style, new coaches. So it's been a great thing so far. It's been fun, and we're going to continue to learn, keep going.
Just on the extension, has there been any conversations between your reps and the Raptors regarding a
the conversations is still their conversations. Again, control what you can control. go out there and play and contribute to winning. That's my goal.
You've been here a few years. You've seen how Fred was sort of the vocal leader on this team, and you talk about the challenges. Filling that leadership void is going to be one of those challenges. Has there, in just the short time you guys have been together already, has there been somebody step up and sort of take on that challenge, that leadership role? And if there hasn't been, do you see an obvious choice?
I wouldn't say I see an obvious choice or, to that. I feel like that's like a natural thing. It's not like somebody you can appoint to do that. You feel me? It's just, again, off your actions and how you respond to certain stuff shows your leadership roles and, how everybody will follow. I feel like, obviously, we have a team and certain guys get paid certain things or in certain positions and certain opportunities, and they had certain experiences, so guys should be open to hearing their experiences or voicing their, opinions or concerns. But it's really just about open communication, being truthful to one another, holding one another accountable, making sure if somebody's supposed to be doing something on the defensive end, they hear it and they know that, and they should be receptive to that and be able to take constructive criticism and be able to grow and move from it, almost like brothers, our teammates. So,
Both Masai and Darko were talking about changing the culture of this team. What would you like to see changed, and what's your role in that as one of the veterans on this club?
Again, contribute to anything that's towards winning. Every single day when I come to work, to be an energy giver, not an energy taker, and contribute to winning. I feel like if I do those two things and everybody else does those two things, it should be a positive work environment. It should be a great time. It should be fun. Again, we're doing everything that we love to do. We've been doing our whole life, the coaching staff and us included. So just going out there and taking it day by day, rolling with the punches, getting better, and, go from there.
Your conversations with Darko to this point, how would you describe the style he's trying to play with this team this season?
Well, we're trying to, not run and gun in a sense, but we're trying to up the tempo a little bit, play hard. We've been doing a lot of running and playing fast so far. The goal is to take this training camp and try to establish on how we want to play. Again, this will be the first time we've had all 15 guys together and ready to, learn and go and see different, again, how this guy reacts, how this guy plays. So that's about it. When we get into training camp, we'll be able to establish that too. And obviously it's going to change by who's out there and what lineups and stuff. So, yeah.
All right, Sherm, Gary Trent Jr., a guy who may benefit from Darko's philosophy of development and in particular developing the bench. Man, there are times we see Gary, he can light it up. He can catch fire in a hurry, and it doesn't matter who's on the floor. He could be a really important piece if he's not a starter, coming off the bench and giving those important minutes from an offensive standpoint for Darko Rajakovic.
Well, you're right, and you think about the position coming off the bench as the primary scorer for that group. I think that's a great position for Gary Trent Jr. to have, and I think he'll really thrive in that position. It's interesting, though, a lot of conversation about his contract situation, brushed it aside.
Yeah.
But he said something very interesting in terms of his relationship with Darko. He said he's had the most communication with a head coach that he's ever had in his career with Darko in this short period of time. And I know a lot of people can look at it as a knock to previous coaches.
No.
I look at it as an admission of he's enjoying the ability to communicate and the way they communicate. And to me, moving forward, that's such a positive thing because he's going to be, even if he's not a starter, a significant piece of this team's potential success.
Sherm, I see that as maturity.
Yeah.
It's an important year, and let's not kind of cut corners or try to cheat the process. I'm going to communicate with the coach. We're going to find out what we need, what I need to do to make this team better, and ultimately when the team gets better, he gets better.
Absolutely, and that's where the deals come.
Yeah.
It's all about the process. Forget about the results. Deal with the process, and the results will be what they'll be. And I love his approach based on what he said at Media Day.
This is the end of part two, and Sherm, some final thoughts as we put a bow on it here. Listen, you and I have been around this game a long time and have been through changes on this side of the camera and as players too. And when you think about it, when a new coach comes in with a new system and you've got new teammates, and the great thing about training camp, it's like the first day of school. It's like a new year. Everything's new. You get to start with a fresh canvas. I just think for the Raptors, it's going to take some time because everything is different. You've got a different direction, a different leader, and people just going to have to need to be patient, Sherm.
Yeah, and it's always a tough ask.
Yeah.
I think a fan base that has been really experiencing a lot of success.
They've seen the top of the mountain. Hey, Masai said it. Only 1 year in the last 10 has there been a losing season.
Yeah, and understanding that the leadership of this franchise built a championship team,
right,
did to make the moves that were kind of risky at some points, but they had a vision and they accomplished the goal. That should lead some trust into the fan base. But it's always difficult to ask a fan base that is so supportive of a team like this to pump their brakes.
Yes.
It's not something that's easy to do. Having said that, this season is going to be very interesting, and especially this training camp, because they're going to be learning just as much as we're going to be learning throughout this process. But one thing we know, and I've said this in the previous show, is that this is going to be a team that plays hard. They're going to get after it defensively. They're going to try to move the basketball and be a team that spreads it out. And we're going to get a chance to see how that all plays out. But this time of the year is so exciting anyway. If you're a Raptor fan or a basketball fan, you got to be jumping for joy.
Translation from Sherman, I kind of trust the process, although I know that didn't quite work somewhere else or it's still in the making. But Sherman, to your point, let's say this. It's going to take some time. They are going to work hard. And those are hallmarks of what the Raptors have established through the front office. Hard work, and we're not going to let anybody down in terms of cutting any corners or taking any shortcuts. No more shortcuts for us. We're all out of runway. For Sherman Hamilton and a couple of talented guys here and in other spots behind the camera that you don't see, thank you for watching us here on Raptors Today. Stay tuned. Lots to come from training camp in Vancouver in the days ahead.